Welcome. This is Macey's Cooking Corner. I'm your host, Afro Danes, and we have the lovely Tracy Armstrong in the kitchen. Welcome.
Hello.
She's looking absolutely lovely. Now, I have to say, I've known Tracy for a while. In our local church, I've seen her, and she was offering some irises. Now, my in-laws, my husband's grandma, that was her favorite flower. And eventually I got to go over to your house.
Come over and get some
and learn so
Raisin.
much. That's right. And her garden's amazing and converted your whole backyard to a big garden.
Well, I'm not the flower person, but they were my mother's flowers, so I still have them. But the backyard is my domain, not the front yard, and I do garden vegetable. My theory of life is if I can't eat it, I don't weed it. So
love that.
I'm not a big flower person. I love them, but I don't spend a lot of time doing them. But I do spend a lot of time doing vegetable gardening.
That's right. And so I learned so much. And then my husband said, should have her on the cooking show. And I was like, yes.
So here I am.
Absolutely. And here you are. And so you've lived in Mapleton for a while, haven't you?
About 10 years.
10 years. And you've got a lovely home, lovely garden. And what do you like best about Mapleton, would you say?
Everything.
Like,
I just
name two things.
Well, when we went to the election the other day, I ran into 15 people just in the little hall, and everybody knows everybody. Everybody was hugging. Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. And you know, in the bigger cities, you go and you stand in line and you do your thing, and you go and you do your thing, and you go home. And here it was more like a social meeting. Everybody was just getting together and talking, and I love that. Not the other day, a few months ago, I was driving down one of the streets, and there was a girl walking a sheep down the sidewalk like a dog.
I haven't seen that one yet, though.
Great. And when I first Googled Mapleton, we've always lived in kind of big cities in New York and D.C. and Atlanta and Dallas area and San Francisco area, and so my husband said we're moving to Mapleton, and I Googled it, and really all I could find was how many chickens you were allowed to have on your property and that kind of thing. I was a little horrified, but I love it. I've never been happier than here.
Really? And we got to meet each other, didn't we?
Yeah, finally.
Oh, finally. And I'm really glad we spent some time that day because I love those irises. Okay, so now what did you decide that you're going to make for us on this special day?
Afro is kind of a health food person, and I'm really not. So I had to try and find it new. I had to try and find a balance between something I like and something that was good for me, because most things don't match that way. So we're going to do what I call 6-week Raisin Bran muffins, and the 6 weeks means you can make the batter, and the batter will stay good in the fridge for up to 6 weeks. So you can make them fresh every day if you want for up to 6 weeks. And the funny thing is I'm not a big Bran fan, and I really don't like raisins, and I absolutely love these muffins. Wow. They're so good.
So they're kid-friendly too.
They're very kid-friendly. They're yummy. This is not one of these things the kid's going to go, this is too healthy, because if it tastes too healthy, I'm not going to like it either. No, not too much. So it's really good, and I make big batches because they also freeze very well. And so if you don't want to make them every day, you can make them way ahead of time. And I have made them in 5-gallon buckets, and I buy the long dish gloves, and I just do it by hand in the end because it's the only way to mix them in that big of a bucket. So
and then when you defrost it, then what do? Just leave it out to
thaw? If you're putting them in a kid's lunch, they're thawed by lunchtime. And I even eat them pretty cold because they don't freeze hard because they're a bready thing, and so they're a little stiffer. And I just eat them because I like them cold too. So
I like it.
It's but they're definitely, you can stick them in the microwave for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, smear a little butter on them, and they're heaven.
Fantastic. Okay, so what's the first thing that you to start mixing it up?
Well, now I usually do this in my big KitchenAid mixer with the machine because there's a lot of mixing that needs doing. But the first thing is to measure. Now I love
her scale. I don't know if everyone can see this, but
Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful. Look how small and neat and beautiful it is.
Baking is kind of a science, and serious bakers, which I am not, will always use a scale.
Yeah, I had a scale, but it didn't look like that.
But I very often, so on this scale, you put your bowl in, and then you hit a button, and it zeroes it out.
Okay.
So you want, I'm doing a half a batch here, but so the half a batch is 7.5 ounces.
Okay.
So we're going to do that until we get up to 7.5 ounces.
All this digital stuff.
Yeah.
I really like that.
It's pretty good. Oh, come on. You're almost there, almost there. There we go. 7.5 ounces.
Okay.
So we do that, and then we've got, double checking, 2.5 cups of flour. Now, as I said, this is nutritious. It is not low calorie. It is not low carb. It is not low fat.
Do you think you could make it? I mean, like the flour, could you do gluten-free or wheat? Could you use wheat? Even though there's a lot of bran in there.
Well, it would be very dense. It would be heavy.
Right.
But if you like it, you like it.
Yeah.
It's not my thing, but that's okay. Then a half cup of sugar.
Okay.
A whole stick of butter. I told you it wasn't low fat.
So far, you can get all of these ingredients at Macey's, by the way.
Everything you can get here at Macey's.
Right.
2 eggs.
Oh. Do you need to whisk the eggs before you put them in?
No, because you're going to put them in a big blender.
Right.
And then the baking soda is 2.5 teaspoons because you want them to rise. And then a little salt. And I like kosher salt more than regular table salt.
Yeah, so do I.
And
what about the baking soda? I always ask lots of questions, but could I use baking powder instead of baking soda?
I don't think so. I don't know why you would want to, because the baking soda
find
is
sometimes
cheaper.
It is cheaper, but then I find the soda kind of salty compared to the when you add extra salt to it.
I was going to say maybe cut back on the salt instead of messing with the thing.
Salt. Okay.
So then we're just going to mix it up, but because I don't have a blender here, I'm not going to do too much. I'm going to go to the magic of television and have some already mixed up. And this is what it should look like. It should look kind of the consistency of an oatmeal.
So how many minutes did you actually, would you process it in a blender for?
Maybe 2 or 3, just until.
Oh,
yeah, that's a shame. Thank you. I forgot something.
Because I was like, that looks dry.
Yeah, sorry, a half a quart of buttermilk.
Now, buttermilk, I've also read that you can make your own buttermilk if you don't happen to have buttermilk by adding vinegar.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
You leave it for a little while and then...
You don't even have to leave it. It just acidifies it and it works fine. I can't believe I forgot that.
I know. I was like, she's telling that.
My first time on TV. That's my excuse for everything today.
And she's looking fabulous. Doing great. I love it.
Anyway,
so you
I did
just
on a real, this would be hard to do with a spoon.
With this spatula.
Yeah.
But what if you don't have a blender?
It can be done. Like I said, I get my glove on and do it in a 5-gallon bucket. So it can be done, but you've got to really break up the butter, make sure it gets evenly spread out.
Yeah.
And it can be done, and I have done it, but I'm not going to do it here.
You're not going to do it today.
That's right. So then you have this, and it's very thick batter.
Okay.
But that's what you want. And then you've got your muffin tin. Now, I know I have the little muffin
which I love.
cups,
I have to say that.
But these do not do well. These are not like cupcakes. They do not do well in that. They'll just stick, and you'll have to peel it off, and you'll lose part of your muffin, which is not fun. So I bake them in this, and then I just use a scooper. Do you want to do the honors?
Oh, I'll watch you first.
Yeah, you big
sissy. You know, hey, I carry on doing the talking whilst you're doing the work.
Talk.
That's right. So, with the...
Can you see what I'm
can you see that?
there?
Oh, sorry, let me just take some stuff away. There we go. So everyone can see that.
And I put
and these do not stick at all. You just put this stuff that you can get from...
you
can get it from...
It's baking spray.
Baking spray,
Pam makes it, or Baker's Secret. They're all good.
Are they good?
Mm-hmm.
I always just don't get this stuff because I always think it has lots of ingredients, but...
It's mostly just oil and flour.
Oil. Okay.
And you got to grease them.
You got to grease it. Okay.
And
then you just put it in there.
I just fill them up.
It smells great.
Yeah, it's yummy. And I was wondering if you could spice them up a little. If you wanted to put vanilla in, maybe you could try it.
There's a smell. Is that the buttermilk that smells very?
I don't know.
Creamy or something.
I think it's the Bran.
Oh,
I think it's the cereal.
True. I used to love this.
That has
actually,
kind of a nice
stuff.
earthy smell.
Yeah.
So that's probably close enough.
Oh, you've got 3 left. Don't
I
you
know.
have 3 to fill in? This is beautiful. Look at that.
I missed it.
She missed 3, but that's okay.
Well, what it is I was only using half a batch because these. Well, let me tell you, these go in the oven for
what degree?
400 for 15 to 20 minutes, depending on your oven. I did mine for 19, and they came out just a little too brown.
Okay.
But so the recipe says for 20 minutes, but I'd set them for 15.
Before we go and do that, because we are going to take a break right here in a few minutes, in about a minute.
Oh, okay.
Before you actually put that all in, for 20 minutes, what was the degree that you said?
400.
Which you have to preheat. Is that correct? And then? And then for how long?
That's what I was saying. But I'd set it for 15 and then check it. You can check it with the toothpick test, or just make sure they're not, they're bouncy when you touch them, that they don't sink down. And
then what do you eat it with?
Very
hot.
high.
Do come out?
I just eat them because I love them, which is so funny because I don't love most of what's in it. But they're just great. I like to smear a little butter on them like you do banana bread or something.
Wonderful.
They're delightful.
Well, we will return back after the break, and we're going to put these in the oven and see what the result is.
Yum.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to Macey's Cooking Corner. I am here with
Tracy Armstrong.
Tracy Armstrong. Hey, I hadn't forgotten your name.
I know.
And we have just put together, what have we put together? Some
6-week Raisin Bran muffins.
Yes.
And 6 weeks is for how long the batter could stay good in your fridge, so you can make them fresh whenever you want.
And we put them all together. They're ready to go into the oven, the preheated oven at 400 degrees. But before we do that, we're going to go over the ingredients.
One more time.
One more time for all of you out there.
Because I forgot something last time, so I'm going to read them for sure.
That's right.
So this is a half a batch I made. So for half a batch.
And I just want to emphasize that usually half a batch would finish.
Yes, it would.
Would fill all of them.
Yes,
all
it
12.
would.
Okay.
Because a whole batch usually makes about 4 dozen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So for this half batch, I did 7.5 ounces of Raisin Bran, and we'll measure, and I'll show you that in a second. Half a cup of sugar, 2.5 cups of flour, half a quart of buttermilk, half a cup of butter, 2.5 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 eggs, and a teaspoon of salt. And just put them all in your mixing bowl and let your machine go. It's easier with a machine.
For how long? How long do you do that in the machine?
In the machine, a couple minutes, just until it's all
mixed in. Okay.
And your butter's completely broken up. Baking really is more scientific. I don't tend to measure most things when I cook, but baking, I really do. And this is just a little digital scale. Do it this way so you can see. And so you turn it on. It sets, and then if you set something on it, I'll set this plate for a minute, you can see that the weight goes up, but you want to measure your food. So you just zero out. Now it's set to 0, and you set your food on, and then you know exactly how much you're getting. And turn it off.
And it's precise.
Yeah, and
they're
they're worth having if you bake very much at all, because they're inexpensive. I got this at just any old store for about $15, and
that's good.
They're very helpful.
I used to have the old style, the one that it has the bowl and then it has the little dial
a regular
thing. Yeah, like a regular dial.
I have that too. But for baking, this one is really precise, and that's really good.
Nice.
So we're going to stick these in and let them cook, and we are going to
on 400 degrees for how many minutes? You said about 15?
15 to 20.
15 to 20 minutes.
Depending on your oven. Mine runs a little hot, so at 18 mine were about ready, but they're good. But I have a set already here, already yummy, already cooked.
Pioneer woman.
And as I said, they don't do well in these kind of cups. They stick. They're not like cupcakes that peel cleanly, and so you start peeling them off in half the side of the cupcakes.
Don't you hate that?
I do, and I would love to be able to make them in that, but if you can't, so if you want to
make it look like it came from
present
that.
them more prettily, then you just take them out.
That's kind of nice.
And you can do these when they're warm if you just use a pair of tongs or something, or wait until they're at least in
what a great idea.
room temperature, and then you can serve them, and they're really, really pretty.
What about, you know, sometimes you can get the silicone. Do you think they would work in them?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think they would. I've never tried it.
Right.
But
you think they would? Because they're not the paper, they're the, you know, the silicone.
They pop out more easily.
Out,
so maybe. But I don't usually serve in those silicones.
No.
Do you? So
no, I don't.
Then I'm not sure it. But it
for,
saves you having to clean this. Anyway.
Because I always like the paper thing, because I just feel like no cleanup.
Yeah, yeah. And this is good if you're packing it in a kid's lunch, or like I said, if you just want to make the plate look a little bit prettier.
Beautiful. Look at that.
You can.
Healthy, kind of semi-healthy.
Yeah. Well, and
cakes, right?
They are nutritious, and people always confuse healthful and nutritious and low-cal and all that, and they're not. There's nutrition in them. There's bran, there's raisins, so there's fruit, there's eggs, there's milk.
There you go.
Do
you remember that?
They're very nutritious.
What was it? The Bill Cosby. Do you remember that skit he did where he had to prepare breakfast for his children and
chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake. Let's eat cake. I love that one. There's eggs. There's milk.
Well, my son and I decided pumpkin pie was the perfect food because you have the grain of the crust, you have vegetable, you have egg, you have milk, and you can. It's all the food groups, and if and it. If you put whipped cream on it, you've got a little more dairy.
There you go.
We decided we could survive forever on pumpkin pie.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's it, right? I mean, it's so true.
These are nutritious. They are not low-cal, but if you're feeding little hungry kids who are running around going crazy anyway, they don't need particularly low-cal.
No.
But these are very good for them. They're not empty calories like a straight cake would be, or a candy bar.
Yeah,
and
I can deal with that.
And they're really good. I know they look like Bran muffins.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
I want
to
taste it. Okay, I'm going to taste the blue one. Oh, I got to do yellow. Yellow's nice and bright. Reminds me of the sun.
And I'll eat one because I love them. I cooked them a little too
that's okay.
brown.
Yummy.
Because I left them in an extra minute, but they're delightful.
Oh.
And delicious. And they're even better
warm
with a little butter. Now, isn't that yummy?
That is yummy.
That's not something a kid's going to say, ooh, I don't like that.
No, my kids would love this.
It feels more like a banana bread or a zucchini bread kind of
but not even as heavy.
Right, but it's sort of between a good bread, zucchini bread, and a cupcake.
That's right.
But
not bad.
More healthy than any of them. More
I really like
more healthful. That's one of my pet peeves. People always say, oh, this is a healthy snack. And that's not right. That means the snack feels good and is healthy.
Yeah.
It's a healthful snack.
A healthful. I like that.
It is helpful for you. It will make you healthy. It's not healthy. It makes you healthy. So pet peeve, I'm one of those grammar Nazi kind of people.
Okay. I'll make sure I know.
It's a healthful snack.
Helpful. Healthful. And again, you can add butter or honey. I was going to bring honey.
They're really good with a little butter on it. And I was suggesting you could dress them up a little more. You could add cinnamon if you like a little cinnamon flavor. You could add a little vanilla if you really want to get...
Oh, an actual spice.
Yeah, if you really want to get brazen, you could try cardamom or something that's kind of out there and experiment with them because they're delightful.
Well, before we... finish up and everything. There was one thing that when I was at your house, you talked to me about, first because a garden's wonderful, and obviously anyone with a good garden, lots of herbs and vegetables, must be a good cook. How did you come to build, creating such an amazing garden? Just to finish off and let our audience know how amazing you are. Who was your mentor?
She knows the answer to this. That's why this is the setup.
What are you talking about?
When we first moved here, there was a little garden plot in our backyard, a good-sized garden plot, actually. But I had never grown anything. I had never tried anything like that. And so the local ward, the church, gave a gardening class in March. And there was an old gentleman, older than I thought at the time. I figured he was about 70. He was more like 87.
Wow.
But he came and gave this gardening class on when to plant things and how to do stuff. And so I went up after and said, would you mind coming by my house and looking at my garden? Because I really don't know anything about this. And so he said sure, and he made arrangements, and he came over, and one of my neighbors came over, and my garden was a pretty good-sized little area, and he said, well, how are you going to turn all this over? And I had bought a new hoe. I'd never had a hoe. I didn't even know you sharpened hoes.
That's right. I didn't know that either.
Let alone the fact that you don't turn over a quarter of an acre of land with a hoe. Right. And so I said, well, I got this. And he just kind of looked at me. It's not in his nature to make fun of anybody, but he just kind of, I'm sure he thought, you poor, stupid girl. But he wouldn't have said so. But he said, well, let me go home and get my tiller. And he went home and brought his big tiller and his ladders and his pruners. And he pruned my trees, and he tilled my ground, and we put in mulch. And he brought me some asparagus. It had just come up in his garden, so he brought me some asparagus. And he took my hoe home and sharpened it for me. And I put my first radish seed in, and I was kind of nervous. It was like, okay, I'm committing. And then a week later, I went out there, and those little green sprouts, and I just got so excited. And I called him and told him all about it, which I'm sure he was thrilled to hear about my radish growing. But then I went over to his house later in the year, and he was canning tomatoes. And I said, would you teach me how to do this? And he said, well, okay. And he was a widow, and his kids don't live in town. They live around, some of them, but they weren't there every day. So he lived alone and worked his 1 acre farm by himself. And so then I said, well, can I work the farm with you? And we just got to be very, very close friends. I felt like he was another father to me. I loved him. His name was Henry Bradford, and a lot of you probably knew him. He grew up in Spanish Fork. He was the house he was born in is still there. No way. Wow. Near the fairgrounds, and I just get a twinkle in my eye every time we pass it. But I called him Bro B, which was short for Brother B, but I always refer to him as Bro B. And so Bro B taught me everything I know, and we would put in 250 tomato plants and beans and potatoes and beets and melons and onions and carrots, and we grew everything, and then we canned everything. And I went from never canning to canning more than anybody I know. My friend. And he taught me how to do all of that, and he passed away not long ago, but he left me a wonderful legacy of a love for the land, a love for gardening. He used to hold a tomato seed in his hand, and he'd get teary, and he'd say, there's life in here, because this will produce a plant that will produce dozens and dozens of tomatoes, which will produce hundreds and hundreds of seeds, all of which will repeat it. And he would get emotional, and it was magical.
So you know how to cultivate seeds from the foods?
Most of them, yes. We always did it year for me. From our seeds, from our own seeds. And we did heirlooms so we could. And he's left me not only a family that I love, his family, who really have embraced me and let me be part of them, but he left me the knowledge and the food and the ability to provide for my family forever.
Wonderful. Beautiful story. And I know her. Isn't that great?
Lucky you.
Absolutely, because that legacy will continue in my family, in my life.
Yes,
Thank you
I'm
so
going to teach
much.
you everything.
Oh, I do hope so. And she has raspberries and plums, and I mean, it's
apples
beautiful.
And peaches
apples and peaches and
apricots
beans, and yes, it was beautiful. And I'll be learning that, and so we'll be able over the coming years, share that with you, the knowledge that I'm acquiring from Tracy Armstrong.
It's fun too.
Thank you again for this delicious, these what are they called? Raisin Bran 6-week muffins that I know that my children are going to enjoy when I make it for them.
Yummy.
And thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye.